I think early on, even from a standpoint of not knowing what exactly the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X would have in terms of power and in terms of GPU strength, a lot of people, myself included, kind of noted that that the PlayStation probably wouldn't stack up, just due to the fact that the words that Phil Spencer kind of said with the release of the Xbox One X, and that they would never be in a situation where they lack power again. You just kind of got the feeling that they were going to go all in on a very powerful console. The problem is, you can also tell that the times had changed, and over the years that the Xbox One X was out, it didn't really get any traction against the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, or anything like that. Even the PS4 Pro didn't get much traction. So, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that owned the PlayStation 4 Pro. I did, but in the grand scheme of things, and almost 117 million consoles sold, I can almost guarantee that probably less than 5 million were PS4 Pros. And then on the Xbox side, probably less than 2 million Xbox One X's. So, again, power matters to a very hardcore type audience, but to the average person, probably not that much. The games are going to be the most important thing. Obviously, Sony went with a different strategy, doing something a little bit less powerful, but then again, they were relying heavily on the games and things like that, and now they're kind of doing their own thing. And will that work out? I mean, it looks like it's working out so far. We'll have to see if they screw it up with their PC plans and with, different things in the future. But for me personally, I like what they're doing so far. I would like to see them take full advantage of the solid-state drive. Simply put, I think it would make a smart decision to not put stuff out on PC, or just to take full advantage of your hardware, even if that means you can't put it on PC. And I think that that's something that I'm not sure that they're willing to do. But in this particular video, a big comparison was made. Developers are talking, and I've got multiple sources that I'm going to link down below, so you guys can all check this out. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really do appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel, and it means a lot to me personally. If you guys are looking to just help out my little crappy channel, the best way to do it is a simple like. Honestly, that's it. That's all basically that I ask for. So anyway, this particular part of the story comes from Gaming Bolt about the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X GPU disparities have minimal impact on development, according to Invader Studios. In a recent interview, they actually went on and talked about the differences between the PS5 and Xbox Series X GPUs. So the co-founder of the studios gives a number of valuable insights about its upcoming game, as well as other topics, including power differences between PS5 and Xbox Series X. While Microsoft's console has an obvious lead over Sony's offering in the GPU department, he doesn't think that it takes much of a difference in development, or will change much in the course of the development for games that are going to be multi-platform. Of course, Xbox Series X can run multi-platform games at slightly higher resolutions, but the difference isn't so stark that you have to cut back on ambition and scale to make things run better on the PS5. He says, and I quote, "Certainly from this point of view, Microsoft has the advantage. More power also means having more creative freedom, but we don't think it's such a huge difference as to bring in significant differences in terms of development, especially when considering cross-platform titles. As far as we are concerned, the development cycle will be the same on both platforms. The most marked differences will be noticed in the optimization phase. Obviously, a plethora of developers share this common sentiment, most notably Blacktail developer The Parasite, whom they interviewed recently. As the generation progresses, it's quite possible that the differences start to hold more weight, but as it stands now, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are both fantastic pieces of hardware, which obviously are going to deliver different games, which is going to be the case. I mean, again, what it comes down to really, I think, is, because everything plays multiplats, is the exclusive content. And I think that that's something that obviously, the Xbox probably doesn't really have as much to say about the matter as the PS5. But the interesting thing about that interview was, since they revealed the PS5 and Xbox Series X specs, a lot of comparisons have been made between the GPU speeds of the consoles. But how much of an impact of development do you think that will have? And this is from the other story. And he says, I think the difference between the PS5 and Series X is not that significant. I'm pretty sure that every game developer is happy that we have no recurrence of the situation from old gens where we had a significant difference between PS4 and Xbox One, which in particular took its toll in recent years. We need to remember that if we are publishing a game on different platforms, we always need to consider the weakest hardware. So they really do kind of put it pretty flat out with what's going on. And I like to also point out that there's multiple things going on right now that kind of go out there and prove that, it's kind of really just depends on the game and sometimes the developer. For instance, Back 4 Blood, the open beta, there's already a video comparison confirming resolution on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and more. There's a new video which is actually based on the open beta that's currently available in the early access for those who pre-ordered the game. It's actually been shared online and also confirms that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions run at 2160p resolution, although they do mention that dynamic resolution could be used in other areas. Additionally, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions do seem to run pretty similarly, with the only differences being with the PC version, which has a higher default FOV. Basically, the resolution has been checked through Act 1. PS5, Xbox Series X run at native 4K. The Series S runs at 1296p, but he doesn't rule out that they may have some dynamic resolutions in other areas. Xbox version has some gamma and contrast mismatches that can be corrected in game settings or on your own TV. All versions run at 60 frames. Charging times practically the same in all versions. Back 4 Blood obviously is going to be launching on everything on October 12th. And again, but this is the game that's going directly to Game Pass, so that's where I'll play it, just because, why not, right? Like, I don't know, like, I didn't really have any interest in really playing this, but seeing that it's going to be in there, I'll give it a whirl, just like I did Outriders. And then Outriders was okay, but I ended up, not really, getting into it enough to just play it all the time or anything like that. It wasn't something that I was like, oh my god, I gotta play Outriders, it's just one of those things. But there you have another instance of a game that's going to be running 4K 60, maybe have some dynamic resolution, maybe not, but again, this is just something that we see that even though there's an advantage for the GPU on the Xbox Series X, it's not being taken advantage of right here. So I think that's a really smart thing to say, that it really just depends on the developer, the game. There's a lot of things that really kind of come into play here. And then you have a situation where, a game was ported or upgraded, and, and it doesn't end up looking as well. Like this new Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which got a next-gen update on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, which is very interesting because, that game's a little bit older, but I think the game looked great. And what's very interesting is this is the situation where Sony kind of shoots themselves in the foot with having to, go ahead and do, what they do with patches to get their games running on PlayStation 5. Like, basically, unless you do a whole new version for the PlayStation 5 specifically, there's nothing much you can do. It has to run on what the PS4 Pro can do, which means you're not going to get full advantage of the hard drive or anything like that. So on the Xbox Series X, you have it's not quite 4K, but it does 1620 checkerboard P. Xbox Series S is 900p, and on the PlayStation 5 it's checkerboard at 3840 by 1080p. So on loading times, the Series X and S are about 13 seconds, with the PlayStation 5 being 29 seconds, almost 30 seconds. So you do have a situation where it's easier to update the hardware on the Xbox side, which is a very smart move. I've always given props to that, right? Like, Microsoft did something very smart a few years ago with their dev kits, and they included basically the ability to run 120 frames and do these types of updates back then, and that continues now. So we do continue to see that they're easily able to update their games with a patch, and on the PlayStation side, not as much. I'm not saying that is a terrible thing or that PlayStation sucks or anything like that. I think that PlayStation is more focused on the future, but I also think that it was very smart for Microsoft to do that, especially given the fact that they're so reliant on older games and things like that, because they haven't really had anything so to speak, in the game aspect of things for a long time. Still going on like what, 2 years or so. So yeah, it is very interesting to see how that kind of worked out and how that sort of comes into play, and just how in general Microsoft and Sony took different routes to next generation. That's something that I think most people will probably agree with and understand where I'm coming from this. Is just that they both took different routes to get here, and it's fantastic to see that, you know, that they're finding their audiences in general. So I do think that that's super smart, and I also think that it makes a lot of sense to kind of go after your audience, you know, and I think that that's exactly what's going on. So bravo to them for being able to do that. And with that being said, I'm going to link all of this stuff in the description. You guys can check it out. Thank you so much for watching. Fact 'em up. Crapgamer out.